Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. For anyone I haven't met before, my name is Kayla Ellice. I'm the founder and managing director over at Inception Marketing, and I'm really excited for today's topic on modern selling for MSPs. We are joined by the one and only Nicky Miklós. I'm very excited to have you joining us, Nicky. Nicky is a seasoned sales strategist, leadership coach, and recent TEDx speaker, which is super exciting. And she's on a mission to help leaders scale with impact, not exhaustion. She's had 2 decades of leading high-performing sales teams and her own lived experience of burnout. And which led her to publish her very awesome book, which you can't probably see because of my background. There you go, she's holding it up. The Healthy Hustle. Now, I have read a couple of chapters of this book, and I must say, it's exceptional. Some really practical stuff in there. Some really good concepts, because I think, and Nicky and I did our prep talk for this webinar the other day, and we were talking about how, as a business owner, as someone who's selling and working really hard, it's not possible to not hustle at certain points in your career. And we talked about how, I love that she's not shied away from that concept. It's actually, it is important. If you want to scale your business, you do have to put in the hard yards and you do have to work the late nights sometimes. But how do we do that in a super healthy way? And she's really nailed it in this book. So we're going to talk today about how selling has changed for MSPs over the years, what the new modern sales tactics look like, and and how to basically activate that through her sales activation model. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicky. Do you want to take it away?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And it makes me so happy to hear that you're finding the book valuable, but also the fact that there's practical tools that you can take away. And this webinar is going to be the same kind of thing, because I'm all about whatever we're doing when we're leaning into learning and growth of ourselves, of our business, how do we actually put some practical action from that so that it truly can make a difference? And also, when we think about modern selling for MSPs, that really falls into this bucket of smart business growth. Whether you're a business owner or whether you're a salesperson or a sales leader, you are investing time, money, resources, the whole shebang to growing that business. So I would say the first thing that you want to focus on, and really ties with this modern selling for MSPs, is moving away from transactional sales to embracing this place of smart growth, because smart growth is sustainable for the long term. Transactional sales, we can fall into churn and burn. And I've been working with MSPs for a number of years before COVID. So we want to bring some of those insights as well today around even how has the sales landscape changed pre-COVID or BC, before COVID, the years before, and kind of what we're dealing with now. So thank you again so much for having me here, Kayla. And let's dive in. Now, this quote is a quote, honestly, I saw this quote probably 7 years ago. It was a long time ago, and it's still one of my favorites, and it's still so relevant to today. A sales pitch, a discount, and a smile will no longer close the deal. And in some cases, they'll get you thrown out of the building. It's almost like that really icky, salesy, aspect. Whereas back in the day, before the GFC, the global financial crisis, 2009, it was a different world. And if anybody here was in the sales world watching, or if you're here live, it was a different world. Like, you literally could just go in and have a smile, throw a discount, and you're sweet, you're golden. I worked in media advertising at that stage, and honestly, like, all I had to do was pick up the phone. It is so not like that now. Would you agree? The other thing I'd say is make sure you pop comments, questions in the chat. I know, Kayla, you're I'm not used to having a little somebody to jump to share
moderate
that, but yeah, like, let's make this really interactive for those of you who are here live as well.
I agree. I think the sales landscape really has changed in that time. Now, that was, that was a little bit before I started selling, and I started, in my marketing career. But it was a different world. I think it was, that transactional sort of. It was very that, I get this, you give me this, you get this sort of scenario. And people didn't want anything more than that. Whereas we've so evolved as a culture now, where it's more about value and relationship focus. And I don't want to steal your thunder because I know you're going to get into that stuff, but it's really now people want to know who they're buying from.
Absolutely. And also people are more educated in terms of what they're buying than they've ever been before. And so that makes, a huge impact. And actually, I was just reading through some statistics this morning around that and the introduction of AI. And what does that mean for people who are actually doing the selling now? When your clients, your prospects, your potential clients can do so much research on what you're offering before they even talk to you. Whereas back in the day, that wasn't the case. So you were that expert. But what AI doesn't replace are things like confidence in what they're buying and building trust. We're going to talk about that. And also the emotional aspect, not just the logical aspect of what they're buying. So, whenever somebody's making a buying decision, there's always an emotional reason and a logical reason. We make decisions emotionally, we justify them logically. Now, I'm not talking emotionally about as in like I'm all emotional and crying, where we all as human beings make emotional decisions based on our needs and our desires. But before we get into that side of things, I really wanted to share what I'm seeing in the market at the moment and, share with us if you can relate to this as well. Conversion times are longer. Buying cycles are longer than they have been. And there's a few reasons for that. One is people can do a lot of their own prospecting and qualifying and researching. But also, if we think about the economic impacts, the uncertainty, changes in home environments, in business environments, this is really impacting this uncertainty, and more decision makers are getting involved. More than ever, there's more decision makers involved. I wonder if you're seeing this, which means that sales cycles are taking longer. And already, as it stands, sometimes sales cycles can go from anywhere 4 to 6 to 6 weeks to 90 days to 6 months, right? Like depending on what you're selling. So sales cycles are getting longer because too many people are involved, and we're holding on to tighter budgets, we're dealing with tighter budgets and all of the economic uncertainty, market impact around that.
Do you think that's a good thing, Nicky? Like, I think sometimes there's so many decision makers in a sales process. Like, do you think that it's a good thing that there's so many key decision makers?
Look, I think it makes it more complex and more challenging. So it means that the buying cycle is actually, the selling cycle is more complex, because if you think about it, it depends on who those decision makers are. And so what's really important is being able to, if you can, get in a room with all of those decision makers, because so often you might have some people on the board that are getting involved and in more detail now than perhaps they have been, but they've got a different priority. Potentially to the operations manager, to the general manager, like what is their priority and outcome? If they are aligned, amazing, that makes it easier. But then the other challenge is timeframes. So, some people are more available to make a decision because this is directly impacting their pain point. They need that IT support. They need that managed service provider. But somebody who's a couple of levels higher, they're not feeling that day-to-day pain. So they might not have the urgency to make the decision. They're literally just looking at numbers and this is a cost, as opposed to somebody else seeing it as an investment. So I actually think it makes it more complex, which is hence the impact of a longer sales cycle. So I don't know that it's a positive. I think it's just something we've really got to kind of navigate and deal with. Great question.
Yeah.
So there's also a lot of distrust in the market. I mean, there's a lot of distrust everywhere, right? Gallup recently did a survey that said that trust is at an all-time low. Surprise? Not surprised at all. But in addition to that, if we think about the introduction of AI and how people are using AI in sales process, if we think about the increased spamming and scamming that's happening, I don't know about you, but I don't want to answer my phone these days. And I'm running a business where potential clients are calling me and I need to answer my phone, but sometimes I don't even say my name when I answer my phone because I'm waiting to see if there's a spam or a scam or what's about to happen. And I know I'm not alone, because when I share these, people are, oh my gosh, me too. So if that's how we're feeling, that is how your prospects and your potential clients are feeling. So when we are looking at this from a point of growing and reaching out to people that we don't necessarily know, and what I really want to get to today is understanding the difference between cold, warm, and hot prospects and how to nurture each. The colder it is, the higher the level of distrust. So that's a real challenge that we have to overcome. Another reality is that people are struggling. We as individuals might be struggling, people in our family, people in our teams, our clients. There is so much going on in the world, not just in our world, which there always is anyway, but from a global point of view, from a national point of view, health, all the things. And we're not here to go through all of that. But reality is that at different points, we're all kind of taking turns at feeling this overwhelm of, oh my gosh, where are we, what are we doing next? Even if you're in a growth phase. So a lot of clients that I work with, their businesses aren't struggling, but there's rapid growth. So that's a form of overwhelm and struggling as well. There's a variety of different reasons, but really good to know when you're thinking about, okay, I'm following up with and reaching out to people. And this is a big one. I already talked about the fact that your potential clients and your prospects often know a lot about the service that you're providing them. I talked about there's a sense of overwhelm and struggling. Another reason for that is we have so much information at our fingertips. There's a really good book by Johann Hari called Lost Focus. I don't know if you've read that, Kayla, or anybody else. Amazing book. One of the things that he talks about is that if we think about it back in the day, we got our source of information, news, once a day from the daily newspaper. That was it. Literally, we get live updates now. Like, it's not even the last time I ran this, talked about this work in a workshop, was like, you can check 20 times a day. But then I realized my wife Jules was saying, oh, I was looking at the live updates. Every second you can get information thrown at you. Our brain is not wired to handle this information overload. And so this, again, is some of the challenges that we're seeing in terms of you might be feeling overloaded, your prospects might be feeling overloaded, and they have so much access to information about how you or somebody in your industry can help. And what this results in is the feeling like this guy. Like hesitation. I don't want to reach out to people. I don't want to annoy people. I don't want to contribute to all of those unresourceful states that we just went through. We all have this aversion to actually being this guy. And some of you might recognize this photo and others might not. It's an age thing. We don't want to be that icky sales person. And yet we already talked about the fact that the sales landscape has changed so much. And in fact, if you just go in with that whole smile discount, yada, yada, you are going to come across as this guy. So before I get into what some of the opportunities are and what hasn't changed, looking at these challenges, Kayla and anybody else in the audience, do you resonate? What are you finding? Can you relate to this? Is there anything I've missed?
I mean, while we're waiting for people to comment, we are definitely seeing there's so many. Oh, sorry about the background noise. We're seeing so many different options now, like from our customers. They've got so many different options, particularly in this landscape, right? Like there's a vendor, there's 3 different vendors for every different solution. It's just this state of overwhelm. Like how do they even pick the best one?
Yeah.
It's very hard work. And I think, if we put the shoe on the other foot, like how do MSPs or technology service providers cut through when there's this perception that they're the same as everyone else? And that's definitely been, that's a marketing challenge.
Definitely. And especially, when we think about this whole introduction of AI, we know that trust is at all-time lowest, and we can get really lazy with how we use things like AI. That just contributes to the problem in that we come across as generic all the time, just like everybody else. And we're subconsciously now on the lookout for, oh no, ChatGPT wrote that as an example. So more than ever now, it's about stepping into that brand personality, which from a marketing point of view, is actually from a sales and marketing point of view, I think is really important. Really stepping into why are we different? And I always think, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, Kayla, because I've always said for so many years that actually your company's biggest unique selling point is the salespeople. The salespeople are at the front line. They are the first port of call in terms of often in terms of conversation. So that person is representing the unique selling point, their personality, how they interact. They don't even know about the features and benefits of what the product or service is going to provide, because it's this person that is sort of like the gatekeeper. Come through and I'll show you. I'm keen to get your thoughts on that as well, particularly from a marketing point of view.
I definitely think that's true on the sales side, right? It's about the experience. It's about the, you know, what feeling do you leave the customer with once you've had that conversation with them. But I think, you know, from a marketing perspective, you can't say anymore that your people are your biggest differentiator, because everybody's saying that, and that's the challenge. So how do you get them to the point where your sales team is having a conversation with them and you can show that that's your differentiator? That's the challenge.
I think that's really good. And actually, it's a really interesting point, because I wouldn't talk about people are the biggest differentiator, because it's kind of like, okay, this is a bit of a random example, but I went to get my nails done and I was looking at all the different names, and one of the names of the places is called Gold Class Nail Salon. And it's kind of like, if you have to say it in the name, does your brand really deliver on that? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I have to say my people are really good and they're the biggest unique selling point, are they, or are you just spruiking them? I don't know if that point kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it should be. That's table stakes now. Your people being good at tables is table stakes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the experience that shows that unique selling point. So should I go on to the next, what hasn't changed? Are there any questions?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Beautiful. So this is what has not changed, and I don't think will ever change. There's another really good book called The 6 Laws of Influence by Robert Cialdini, and he talks about some of these key areas. But what will never change is that people will buy from you if they feel like they know you, trust you, and like you. Now, again, that's from a marketing and a sales point of view, and I absolutely love when sales and marketing comes together like we are today, because too many businesses see it as two separate entities. But in fact, the more that sales and marketing works together, the more compelling it is, the more you build trust, the more that people feel like they know you, the more that people feel like they like you, whether or not, how many conversations you're having. So your sales and marketing combined really helps bring this to life. And this is also from a human behavior point of view, which is why it doesn't matter how much the external landscape changes, this fundamentally will never change. And in fact, in 1980, when people were door knocking to sell encyclopedias, there still was an element of know, like, and trust. Times are really different now, but it's how do I bring this into every interaction with our clients, our prospects, from a marketing and a sales point of view?
It's just human behavior. And we ran a webinar with JF a couple of months ago now. It's on our YouTube if you want to go and take a look. But he talks about that, that human psychology and how it is baked into us, this stuff, that it's never going to change. This is the way that we need to be sort of communicating with people now, almost going back to those primal ways of communication.
Yeah. And I think, again, even more so now, because people are yearning for that human touch. So we need to find that way to embrace technology and bring the human touch and connection along with it. And so that's why I think this is always a really good reminder around how am I building that relationship so they feel like they know me or the brand or the team. There's a reciprocity there, there's a like, and also they trust me. The other thing that definitely is not ever going to change is that there's a problem that needs to be solved. So your job, like our role as salespeople, is to identify what is that problem, or another way to look at that is what is that need that you're looking to fulfill. So you're always solving a problem or fulfilling a need for somebody. And that's why, when you're selling, it's a win-win. Side note, we've got to really work on our beliefs around selling and what does that mean to us, because we can be holding ourselves back by making it about ourselves instead of focusing on what is that problem I'm helping to solve for that client and prospect, or that need that I'm looking to fulfill. Something else that's really important is that it has to be the right time. You're talking to the right person with the right message. So what I mean by that is the right message is where that linking of all of your marketing and everything that you're putting out there, or if you're a salesperson that does, or sales leader that does social selling, every message that goes out needs to be linked to and relevant to what the salesperson is saying. You've got to talk to the decision maker, and it has to be the right time for you. If you get a tick in all those 3 boxes, right message to the right person at the right time, you will get a sale. When one of those things is missing, that's where you don't get the sale. Sales is about relationships. Again, that's at the core. So whether it's a more in-depth relationship, whether we're leaning on that a little bit more, or how we're bringing that to social selling, it's still built on relationships. And that's really linked to that first know, like, and trust. And as I said, Gallup did some research earlier this year, did a survey that showed that trust is at an all-time low, and that trust and hope are the #1 emotions that people are yearning for. So with everything in mind that we've talked about, always be thinking, how is this interaction helping to build trust? From the marketing point of view, from the salesperson point of view, the conversations, and again, that the right message when it follows through, if it is really synonymous, if it transitions nicely, there's a law of consistency that builds trust around that. So is there anything you'd add to that, Kayla?
No, I love the point around, people buy from people, which is, I think, your slide before this one. And, right place, right time, right message is really important as well. And again, that's one of the tricky things is, like you said, if one of those things is out, then the message is not going to resonate, or, the the people are not going to pick up on that message because they're the wrong type of audience. So I think from a marketing perspective, what that really leads into is it brings us back to those basics. Like, what is your target audience? What are you trying to tell them? And what sort of part of that buying cycle do you want to be involved in? Because, or are involved at, because, like, I talk to a lot of customers and they are like, I don't want to be the first MSP that someone brings on, or, I want to be the third, because by that point they know the value of what I do. So,
Yeah.
A customer who's at that point is in a different type of buying cycle to someone who's looking for their first ever MSP. It's a very different sale at that point in time. And I think, yeah, what you were saying about, I say this all the time, so I'm so glad you brought it up. We don't sell IT. We sell problems. We sell solutions to problems.
Yes.
That is what we sell. We don't sell a managed backup solution or an AI agent. That's not what we're selling. We're selling a convenience, or we're selling a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more. And if there's one thing that you take away from today, if that is like aha moment for you, or a key insight, if that was one thing to take away, that's a really powerful thing. Because we're not buying, I said earlier that we make decisions emotionally, we justify them logically. So the AI solution, the tech stack, the IT solution, all the technical stuff that you talk about, that's the logical stuff that will justify them saying yes.
Exactly.
But the emotional reason, it usually comes down to saving time. What does that mean for them? What else can they be spending with that time? Saving money, efficiencies of money. Like, let's face it, that's usually the 2 things that we need to uncover. What is their desire around that? What is the client, by the clients, problem that you're solving around that? And specifically, what does that look like for them? So we don't want to assume, we need to go in with curiosity, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's such a great point. You are selling the outcome. So when you're watching, and write this down, I am selling the outcome of what my product and service does. That is so important. So important. All right, let's talk about what a typical sales process looks like. So this is what I see a lot. We maybe wait for an email to come in, wait for the call. Then you might set a meeting. Then you have the meeting, but you don't really know too much about them. So it's what we call a cold start. Then you email a proposal. And sometimes you don't hear back from that person. You fall into this proposal chasing. So typical sales process, it's usually unintentional. It's just what sort of naturally happened. But I want to introduce a different way. And I'm giving you the entire blueprint so you can identify where's your first gap point and then just focus on plugging that gap. And then you can look at, okay, what's the next thing? So I want to say that up front. I don't want you to get overwhelmed around, oh my gosh, there's so much to do here. I just want you to focus on, get curious now as I take you through. What are the potential gaps? Make a note of them, and then you'll pick one to focus on. So I talked about the typical sales process, wait for it to come in, we set the meeting, have the meeting, email a proposal. Some of them land, a lot of them don't. What we want instead is to actually be more intentional and deliberate. Now, it looks like this is, I'm going to take you through this ideal sales process. And yes, there are some more steps. However, everything that we are focusing, the goal, the outcome of us having this conversation, and whenever I'm doing any work with clients, it's about two things. How can I shorten the conversion time? And how can I get more conversions? Which of course leads to more revenue, more money, more clients, all of that. So these are our two goals. So whilst it looks like there's more steps, you actually will be more efficient with your interactions with those prospects. So you will shorten the conversion time with them and you'll get more conversions. And for the conversions you don't get, the clients that don't come on board, you've built so much more of a relationship with them. You've taken so many more of those important elements we talked about before that they might come back to you. There's more chance they're going to come back to you when the time is right or the right decision maker is in place, or these key aspects that we talked about. So first thing is we need to look at how are we nurturing warm leads. You want to make sure that there's qualifying questions. Kayla, you mentioned before around getting really clear on your ideal client profile. Actually, I don't want to work. My ideal client isn't someone that's never worked with an MSP before. I'm the third MSP that they've worked with because they get how we work. The teething problems are out of the way and they see value in finding a good one. So if that's the case, do you ask good qualifying questions, either or both, in your marketing and the first step of your sales process? So for example, your marketing might speak to qualifying questions. It might speak to the fact that it's established businesses or what that ideal client profile looks like. But then you also might have a couple of questions when they go to book a meeting with you. Or you might do a quick 5-minute phone call, 10-minute phone call before you have a meeting with someone. If you don't have it all set up on your website, a booking system, it could be a 10-minute phone call where you're actually having a quick conversation to determine what are they looking for. You can ask them your qualifying questions. If it's the right fit, then you set a meeting.
And it's all about them, isn't it, Nicky? It's never about us.
Yes. Now, that's an interesting point. What I always ask is, okay, think about who your ideal client is and what your non-negotiables are. When you're thinking of some of those questions, yeah, you might think about who you can serve best. Then we turn that into a question. And when we're interacting with a client, it's always about them. But it's about getting curious around, is this the person I can best serve? Because remember, qualifying questions, you're just looking at 3 to 5 questions here. We're not actually in the full discovery phase yet. So actually, I'm even going to say 3 questions. 5 could be even too much, but 3 to 5. It could be, how big is your business? How many team members have you had? Have you worked with an MSP before?
Yeah,
what location are you?
There you
go. Done. So it could be a quick form, a 5-minute phone call, in your booking system. Your marketing is going to speak to that, of course, because you're talking to that established. When I drive past the bonds ads, I'm like, that's a specific demographic right there. I rode my bike past a bonds ad and it's like these 3 young guys holding little lambs in their bond singlets. I'm like, that's a specific targeted demographic. And that's the point. Like, you get it right when it says yes to someone and no to somebody else,
That's it.
So all of this, and now you're going to set the meeting. If they are your ideal client, and if they're not, you don't set a meeting. So see how there's more steps, but in fact, it's going to save you time because the meetings that you have are higher quality, which means you're more likely to have a high quality conversation. It will be somebody that you actually can serve and help. Okay, so you set the meeting. Now, here's the other tip. Once you've set the meeting, this is the first meeting here, do a couple of touch points. Warm them up. Help them. Remember, I said what hasn't changed is they feel they know you, like you, trust you. You could send them a LinkedIn message if that's your channel, or an Insta, whatever your channel is. Hey, I'm really looking forward to that meeting. If you've already had the phone conversation, that's a touch point. But let's just say it's an automated booking system. Send them a voice note. You could send them the pre-survey, which I've already touched on. Send them a Loom. I love a good Loom, or a video. Hey, Kayla, Nicky here. I'm really looking forward to the meeting, and seeing how I can help you. Even just something like that. Think about how good that would feel. And also, who else is doing that? We talked before.
I think this is really important, though, to know your audience, right? Like,
know your audience.
Yeah, I'm not sure an enterprise customer would probably respond the same way to a Loom as, say, a LinkedIn message. But if you're going to meet, say, a marketing agency, they would love to receive a Loom.
Yes, yes. And also think, I mean, even with LinkedIn, so you're absolutely right. Know your client and know what they're going to respond to best. But don't let the fear of all the things stop you from having a touch point. So a LinkedIn message, you can also do a LinkedIn voice note. So when people hear you, have you done that?
I have, actually, just recently.
Yes. So that might be, you know, like if they hear you or they see you, then the rapport is at a higher quality, right? Like rather than just a written. So if you can do a touch point where they hear your voice or they see you, then that can help, you know, build that rapport quicker. Remember, shorten the conversion time. When you get on that meeting, we're at meeting 1 here. When you get on this meeting, you know that they're the right ideal client for you. You have done a touch point, so they already feel like they get to know you. They know you a little bit more than maybe they even do, if that makes sense. Makes sense so far?
Sure does.
Great. Now we're in the meeting. We're going to ask effective questions. We're going to uncover their motivators. We absolutely 100% are making it about them. We're not rushing in to sell a solution, which is about us. Although when you sell this, when you recommend a solution, we want to link it about them. And we have that meeting. Hopefully it's a first call resolution and you make the sale there. Sometimes it's not. If it's not, that's when we bam fam. And bam fam gets its own box because it's so simple, but it's a game changer. Bam fam means book a meeting from a meeting. So remember up here, I said we email a proposal and then we become a proposal chaser. Well, the way to overcome that is at least try and attempt to book the next meeting in. So you've had a great meeting, you've asked lots of questions, maybe it's not the right time to present the solution, you're going to come back and present it. Don't just say, cool, I'll email you through, well, you probably don't say cool, but great, I'll email you through some information and a proposal. If you're doing that, and I'd love to get a feel for who is doing that. I find that a lot of people are doing that. And that's when you become a proposal chaser, which is where you get ghosted, you don't hear from them. It's so much better to present a solution on video or in person. That's the ideal that we're shooting for. We can't always get there. You know, not 100% of people will say, can you just email me something through? Now, and I'll talk to that in a moment. But the goal is to try and bam fam them. So it's about, okay, Kayla, we've gone through some, you know, these great ideas. I feel like I have an understanding of this is problem A, B, and C you're solving. I'm confident we can solve it through A, B, C. Let's set up a meeting so that I can take you through specifically what that looks like. How's next Tuesday at 10 a.m. work for you? Just try it. Because all of a sudden you're in their calendar and you're not going to be chasing them to lock in that next meeting. Remember, you're not your prospect's biggest priority, as much as sometimes we should be, because what you can do to help them save time, save money, increase efficiency, but it's just the reality that you're not. So have that first meeting, book the next meeting if it has to go to a second meeting, and in that meeting you can present the solution if you haven't already. Now, if you can't bam fam, if they're like, no, I just want you to email it, or if you know that the decision maker is not going to be in that meeting, this is where I actually suggest you do a Loom or something similar, because you can actually take them through your collateral, your proposal, your recommendation. It allows you to be in the room, even when you're not. It's the next best thing, because who knows your solution better than you? No one. You are the expert in your solution. So I use Loom for corporates. I use it for small businesses to, massive businesses, big corporate universities, and they love it, because also if you're trying to get all those different key stakeholders in place and you can't get them in the same room, you can record a Loom or similar, send it through, and then organize a meeting with your direct person. And then finally, we get the yes, and we want to make sure that we're creating certainty, we're wowing them. So there's a fair bit covered off in that, Kayla. I'd love you to just sort of pull out the bits that you think are relevant to kind of look in a bit more of a microscope, what your thoughts are from the group, how that lands, particularly, the Loom, the BAM fam.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about your particular. I mean, I obviously got these slides in advance, so lucky me, I've had some time to digest it. But before you presented this to me, I didn't know that I didn't have this in my repertoire of selling. I think the one thing with the BAM fam as well, I'm going to jump around, but the BAM fam, like, it actually stops you from having to proposal chase as well. Like, if you can get a meeting in the diary, you don't need to be calling your prospect every, 2 days to see how they got on with the proposal. If there's another meeting in the diary already, you can just let them digest your proposal or your quote, and then know that second meeting is coming. I think one of the questions that some people might have in their head, though, is, well, what happens if the prospect doesn't show up to the second meeting or they cancel it? What do you do then?
Yeah. Okay, so first up, I would say you've got meeting one here. I would not email the proposal to them. You present the solution live. You can present this, one option could be present the solution live at that second meeting.
Yeah, there you go. That's
so then they're going to rock up.
Yeah.
Or
do you think that some people might want a faster sort of process, though? Like, do you think that some prospects might be like, oh, why do I have to get on another call? Like, just send me a proposal.
Completely. So remember, what we're aiming for is that you have the meeting, and then they rock up for the second meeting and you can take them through. Not everybody's going to want to do that, but the point is that that's best practice that you're shooting for. If they then say, oh, I don't want to wait a whole week, you can say, no problem, let's jump on tomorrow and we'll run through it, 15 minutes, we'll get it done, right? Like, it doesn't have to. Here's the other thing. Don't schedule 45-minute hour meetings. Maybe for the first one. The second one, 20 minutes. Like, you've done the groundwork, you've built it. They're going to appreciate. Like, so even the urgency in how you respond, if they're like, oh, I don't want to jump on a meeting. Oh, no problem. Is there a reason for that? Like, I want to make sure that I take you through the information. Yeah, I'm just so busy. Great. Could we do it in 15 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
If you are in control, you are leading this conversation. If they still say no, you can say, okay, no problem. What I'll do is I'll send it through. I'm going to record a video to take you through it. Because think about it. You want to explain, like, you can't. The collateral that you send through, I don't know what yours looks like specifically, everybody. I'm looking at you, but I have seen it range from a Word document that's PDF'd and it is so text heavy. And it's like, where's the selling in that? And a lot of IT providers, they kind of tend to have that proposal all the way through to really creative. I mean, it looks almost like a slide deck, which is what we want, because we're making decisions emotionally, we're justifying logically. If you need all that detail and data, no problem, but put it at the back. Put it as an appendix. Think about how your proposal is actually selling and representing your brand and what you offer. And I do find that in this space, there is that danger zone of it becoming more like a T&C, like some of your SLAs and other documents that you have. So if you think about, you're sending through this document, that's two different examples. It's a Word doco versus it's really beautiful and creative. And of course, there's things in between. But that document itself or the email itself isn't going to be able to give context and nuance of why this point really matters in terms of, you said that, you're having to spend 2 hours extra a day on dealing with hands-on issues that people have in, on their computers or in Microsoft or whatever it might be, right? So How do you get that nuance? You're able to talk them through it. And if you can't do it live, that's where you can record a video. Like, I will never send a proposal without a Loom. And not everyone says, yeah, let's do the BAMFAM second meeting. Then they get a Loom video. Or you can't get everybody in the decision maker in the room, a Loom video. And, you know, to this day, and I've been doing it for a number of years, recently I onboarded a client, 40 mil plus client. The CEO couldn't be in the meeting. He watched the Loom video. They played it in the board meeting. From that, the chair of the board saw it. He's now connected me to another business, all because I recorded a 12-minute Loom.
It's very powerful, isn't it? Like, because I think as well, it helps the customer to see your face, know your tone, know your voice. Like, they actually feel like they know you, and it comes back to that trust. They know they like you. Like, it's really about that. I think as well, I think pick up on the cues of your customer or your prospect as well. Like, pick up on the cues of your in the meeting. What do they like? What do they dislike? What are they responding to? Like, try and really use those, those human elements that we spoke about before to understand what's going to help them resonate. And I think as well, just going back to your sales proposal and what that looks like, if you're not sure, work with a marketing specialist or work with a sales specialist to get some feedback on that and get it right. Because I think that it's really powerful if you can get that right.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. We need to look at all of the different areas. And what I'd say is challenge the status quo. Just because you've done it this way for a number of years doesn't mean that it's the best way to keep doing it. And reach out to Kayla and myself. I mean, we're obviously obsessed with this stuff. So, yeah. And so that answers your question around if you can't, that's the hook for the second meeting, is that you are going to present them the solution and hopefully you get a yes then and there. Now, I wrote first call resolution here as well. The goal ideally is you get a yes on the first call. But depending on your service, your product and service that you're putting forward, depending on how complex it is, depending on all the things we've already talked about, number of decision makers, sometimes and often we don't get a yes in that first call. Now, if you've done a touch point, you've qualified, you have a better chance of it. But oftentimes we need that second call. But if it's intentional, if it's structured, you're still saving time. And answer to the sense of urgency that your client has. Some of your clients will just want to make a decision as soon as possible. Great, meet that energy. Some of them are going to need to think. Some very analytical decision makers are what we call 3-time convincers. They need 3 touch points with you before they're going to say a yes, regardless of how good it is, which is another reason from a human behavior point of view that it's really good to have these additional touch points and why it can help shorten conversion times. I also want to say, you might be sitting here going, oh, I don't want to do a Loom. I don't want to do a video. Oh, I can't think of anything worse. Like, cool, you don't have to. What we're showing you is best practice sales process. And I can tell you right now that the clients, the businesses that are embracing and getting out of their comfort zone, out of their own way, that are doing, say, a Loom or the qualifying questions or the touch points, they are absolutely the businesses that are converting more. So you don't have to do any of this, but this is the blueprint of best practice that you can choose to lean into. And what's your 1% to get out of your comfort zone? That's an important message.
I think it is really important as well. Like, we talk about this a lot at Inception, is that founder-led mentality and that founder-led content that's produced off the back of that. And I'm sure that, our customers that are on the call are probably sick of talking about this, but it is really important that, because it comes back to that know, like, trust model that you presented before. They have to know who they're buying from. And putting your face out there, like whether it's on a Loom and just in that sales, that sales proposal, I guess constraint, that's okay. That's a great first step. You don't have to be going out there in the, the LinkedIns and stuff like that. I mean, we would actually love that. But, if that's, too far out of your comfort zone, just doing something like embedding a video and talking about the company, or embedding a Loom that's personalized to the customer, that's a really good first step. But getting your face out there is really important because they want to know about you. They want to know who they're buying from. People buy from people.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and again, this comes back to that whole thing around trust is at an all-time low. So the more they can hear your voice, see your face real time, photo cool, but like you as a human, and it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the less perfect it is, the better it is. I remember reading an article by Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and he was saying that, in fact, what he does sometimes, even with his articles or things that he's producing, is he'll deliberately have a lowercase, or I don't know, like spelling errors, maybe not, but something that shows, oh, okay, a human did it. If you stumble on your words a little bit, don't re-record it. It just shows that you're a human. And we have a yearning for this as a society now, to know that it was an AI that produced this perfect, thing, particularly when we're working. Now, be careful about what standards you drop around that, but the more you show up as you, not perfect, the more that you're going to build that relationship and that connection.
And that's going to solidify your brand as well. Like that's going
Yes.
to show the real people behind that brand. So, if your values are matching the brand values, then that's a really powerful thing. You're actually living and doing what you say that you are.
Yeah, exactly. I'll also say, if you record say a loom with the solution, you'll share your screen so you can take them through the proposal doc, pitch doc, or whatever it might be. So make sure you do that as well. It doesn't have to just be you in the video talking. So somehow that feels a bit easier. Keep your camera on if you can, if you're game, so they still see your face in the little circle, at the bottom. But it can feel, as you said, Kayla, a bit more comfortable. So the reason that this sales process that I mapped out is also really effective, we'll send you this slide deck as well, is when you look at an overarching, evergreen, really effective sales process, there's two key parts to it. There's the discover, to uncover what the problems and the needs are. And everything that we just went through step by step is taken care of here. We're qualifying, you're asking great questions, you're understanding motivators. If you can present a solution in that meeting, great. That's where meeting two may need to happen. You're presenting a solution, hopefully live, online, or in person. If not, you're doing a Loom and bam famming. In that meeting, next meeting, you're getting the yes, you're closing that sale. And then you want to give them certainty. The sixth emotional state of a sale is certainty. And so top tip around that is, give them a welcome pack, book in the next, always BAMFAM. By the way, BAMFAM, I use it for my social life as much as I do in my business life. Kayla, when we were setting meetings up, every time we BAMFAMmed. So this can be for internal meetings. It can be for social events in your personal life. Book a meeting from a meeting always. So even at the end of the sale, book the next meeting with whoever is going to be onboarding them, because it gives them a sense of certainty. So just a high level, different way of looking at that sales process. And ultimately, and this is, the work that you do, Kayla, that's amazing, is it's understanding those different lead types that funnels into that ideal sales process. I'm not sure if we have time to go through the three now, because we just have had this amazing conversation. If we want to open up to questions, or if you'd like to spend a few minutes looking at the difference between the cold, warm, hot, but I'm going to leave that to you.
We have had a question come through, and it's from James.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on sending a proposal before a sales meeting? I don't send a proposal until after I have run it through with the client first.
Yeah, so the benefit of doing that is, again, you are able to give the context and the nuance of the key parts of the proposal. There's two kind of camps around this, because there's also benefits sometimes in sending a proposal through. You mentioned before as well, Kayla, they can marinate on it, they can think on it, and then they can come with questions. But the danger of that is that you become a proposal chaser, and then they don't show up to that meeting, and then you are emailing them and trying to call them, and they fall off the face of the earth. If they are really engaged in the process, if you have a really good relationship already with them, then I think it's okay to email that proposal beforehand. I still would do it with a Loom video though, so you can talk it through. But I think So there is context, sometimes it depends. It's okay to send it earlier, but I think in general, there's so much benefit in you being able to take them through the proposal, because then you get to see their real time in the moment response to it. You can, if they're like, oh, that's way more expensive than I thought it was going to be, they're not then sitting on it and marinating it. You can have a conversation about it right there. The whole point of doing the solution in that meeting is you can real time overcome an objection or talk through things that they're confused about. How often is there misunderstandings? They might think you mean one thing, but actually you mean another. So I'd say best practice, set a meeting, go through the proposal together. You can workshop any concerns they have, any objections, answer any questions real time. If that isn't an option available to you, or you know that you've got a really deep relationship and they're going to show up to that meeting that you've booked, then potentially send it through. But yeah. Does that answer that question, James?
I think so.
Right, Kayla, good. Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's go through the cold, warm, hot. I almost put them in the wrong order. For the last 8 minutes, if you can whip through it in 8 minutes, and then we'll see if there's any more questions, and then we can wrap it up.
All right, I love it. Okay, so it's really important to remember that not all leads are equal. And what I mean by that is our nurture process for a cold lead has to be different to a hot lead. So if we first just start to understand actually what is the difference, what is a cold, warm, hot lead, and also where they are in the buyer's journey. So when we look at a cold lead, they are in what we call awareness phase. So they might be starting to become aware that maybe I have a problem, I have a need, I'm not happy with my current provider, I need to actually outsource, whatever that might be, but they're not 100% sure on what that problem is yet. And a cold lead is the most resistant because they don't know you. They don't know anything about you. You're an unknown entity. We said trust is at an all-time low. We're overloaded with information, all of the things we talked about earlier. So they don't know who you are. They're most resistant, and they're just starting to think, do I have a problem that needs to be solved? And they're not even thinking about it in that language. They're just starting to think, I'm sick of these late nights. I'm sick of this not being able to sleep at night because I'm worried about X, Y, Z. When we move over to warm lead, they're in consideration phase. So they're starting to consider, they're like, okay, I know I need help with this. I know I'm not happy with my current MSP, but I don't know. Where do I go? Who do I go to? I'm considering my options. So there starts to be more of an openness. How do I spell openness? That'll do. There starts to be more of an openness to, oh, could you be the right fit for me? Or maybe I remember there was that conversation I had previously. And a warm lead, they either know your brand, they either know your business, who you are, or they know you or somebody in your team personally. So maybe they've worked with one of your team members at a different MSP, or maybe they know you specifically. They saw Kayla pop up on LinkedIn, or they've had a relationship with you before, or they've heard of Inception Marketing or ShadowSafe or, your brand. So they know you or they know of you. They're a bit warmer. They're more open. The important thing to remember here is there's an openness. They're not as resistant. When we look at hot leads, they're at acceptance stage. They're like, yeah, I know I've got an option between you, and I want to go with you. And I'm making that decision. Sorry, they're at decision. So they're at acceptance, decision phase. So they're open to accepting. So here's the thing, buyer's resistance, the only way that we can lower buyer's resistance is actually through increasing buyer's acceptance. Okay, so if we go hard and fast, and the way to do that is to focus on lowering buyer's resistance. So if we go hard and fast on, these are all the reasons why you should love me, I'm going too hard and fast on acceptance. But if I start to go, oh, we're going to build a relationship and I'm curious about asking some questions, I'm going to build rapport, buyer's resistance lowers, and by default, acceptance increases. So we really need to understand that if I have a cold, in other words, they don't know me, if I give too much information too quickly about all the ways that I can help, I'm just going to increase resistance. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does to me, but
Right.
I think as well that the thing I'll call out here is that a cold lead is probably not technically a lead at that point, right?
Yes.
They probably haven't submitted their contact information to you for you to call them. They are just probably more so part of that pool of potential customers at that point.
Yeah.
I think the warm lead is they are generally showing the signals. So they might be visiting your website multiple times or clicking on something on your LinkedIn or downloading something off your website. That is generally where you start to see, you can start to narrow down that pool. And then obviously that hot prospect is a prospect. They've given you their contact information, you're booking meetings with them. So
Yeah.
I think that's important to yeah, you're right. Contact, lead, prospect. I think that's really
Yes.
important. And I
Yes.
think, at that cold contact stage, it's really about helping them to recognize that they've got a problem at that point in time.
Yes.
Like you said, we're not bombing them with information about the solution at that point. It's just about the problem. And then we move into the solution, right? So,
Yes.
and then we talk about at the hot prospect stage, how is your company different from anyone else?
Yep, definitely. So absolutely. And so here's the thing as well, and why marketing is so important, but also understanding the difference between the three. Ideally, we want to play in this space and we want our marketing to deliver hot leads. But also our marketing and the activity that we do is really going to be driven through warm and hot leads. This is the space that's less awkward. We want to build warm and hot as much as possible, because cold, it feels more awkward, it's harder work. But the reality is that if it ain't coming in here, we need to be proactive in how we're nurturing cold. And even if we look at that, I say the word funnel loosely, but the triangle, cold eventually become warm, eventually become hot. So the final thing I want to leave with this is almost a little strategy around each. Your cold is about what marketing are you doing to introduce them into your world so they get to know who you are, not to sell to them. Because if they've got a need immediately, they'll become hot. What business development or sales activity are you doing? And as an example, if we put a third, what networking can be a great place. It's higher touch though, so it takes more effort. When you look at warm, referrals are a huge opportunity that are often missed. Proactive referrals. Your inbound inquiries are huge here, and that's obviously driven by marketing. And also your previous clients, big missed opportunity here. When we look at hot, the really key things to focus on is that you are providing certainty and confidence that you are the right fit, that you are nurturing them, and that you actually have got the skills, like you've invested in the sales skills to be able to convert. So again, a lot of information has been covered off here, but I really want you to think about what's the one thing that actually I'm not doing here and here, and then let that be the actions that you're taking. I do have some resources that build on particularly the cold, warm, hot lead and go into a bit more detail around a strategy around that. So if you want to get your hands on that, you can use this QR code to get the growth code, or follow me on LinkedIn, because I am so obsessed with this stuff and I want to keep the conversation going. And we're almost right on time, Kayla. I hope that's okay.
Look at you go. That's fabulous. Yeah, if you do want to connect, we are going to send around today's slides, probably come out tomorrow. And if you do want to connect with Nicky, then please do connect with myself if we're not already connected. And yeah, it was fabulous. We've got no more questions. So, but if you do find yourself coming up with questions, maybe you take it away and marinate on this a little bit. If you do find yourself coming with questions, then feel free to flick through an email to myself or the Inception team, and we'll either pass it on to Nicky to respond, or we'll answer it ourselves. But thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much, Nicky.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy selling.